I apologize. We're going to read once again from 2 Kings chapter 5. So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him. And his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant." The prophet answered, "As surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept a thing." And even though Naaman urged him, he refused. "If you will not," said Naaman, "please let me, your servant, be given as much earth as a pair of mules can carry. For your servant will never again make burnt offerings and sacrifices to any other god but the Lord. But may the Lord forgive your servant for this one thing. When my master enters the temple of Rimmon to bow down, and he is leaning on my arm, and I have to bow there also. When I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord forgive your servant for this." "Go in peace," Elisha said. After Naaman had traveled some distance, Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said to himself, "My master was too easy on Naaman, this Aramean, by not accepting from him what he brought. As surely as the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him." So Gehazi hurried after Naaman. When Naaman saw him running toward him, he got down from the chariot to meet him. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Everything is all right," Gehazi answered. "My master sent me to say, 2 young men from the company of the prophets have just come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 sets of clothing." "By all means, take 2 talents," said Naaman. He urged Gehazi to accept them and then tied up the 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 sets of clothing. He gave them to 2 of his servants, and they carried them ahead of Gehazi. When Gehazi came to the hill, he took the things from the servants and put them away in the house. He sent the men away, and they left. When he went in and stood before his master, Elisha asked him, "Where have you been, Gehazi?" "Your servant didn't go anywhere," Gehazi answered. But Elisha said to him, "Was not my spirit with you when the man got down from his chariot to meet you? Is this the time to take money or to accept clothes or olive groves and vineyards or flocks and herds or male and female slaves? Naaman's leprosy will cling to you and to your descendants forever." Then Gehazi went from Elisha's presence, and his skin was leprous. It had become as white as snow. I really enjoy exploring new places, new cities. What's this place like? What are the people like? My brother-in-law lives in Tacoma, Washington, and my wife and I went out to visit him once, and we set aside a day to go in and take a trip to Seattle. And just about everything I think now about that city comes from this one short experience we had there. What this harbor city is like, what the people are like, what this place is like. I like hearing about other people's impressions of what places are like. My dad, when he's telling me about some new place that he's been to, will get out a blank sheet of paper and start drawing on it the major highways, the places that he went to, what's unique about this place. What are the people like? What is this place like? I always think that's interesting. Naaman, the Aramean, took a trip into Israel, and he was going to go away with a much more important impression than just what this place and the people were like. He was going to go away with an impression of what God is like. This Naaman was from Aram, an enemy country with Israel. Even more than that, Naaman was a commander in the Aramean army, this rival army to Israel. But Naaman had leprosy, a terrible skin disease, so he was willing to try anything to get this cured, to be healed. Naaman happened to have in his household an Israelite servant girl. Why was this Israelite servant girl in this Aramean's house? Well, Naaman was a commander in the army. It seems like Naaman or another Aramean army had captured this girl or her family and taken her to be a servant in Aram. Despite the hostility that you might guess would be there, this Israelite servant girl saw her opportunity to show what her God is like. She told about the prophet of the Lord who was in Israel, who she was confident would heal Naaman. What is your God like, Israelite servant girl? Well, apparently he is a God who cares deeply about souls, even the soul of a man who was an enemy commander to his people, that her God could heal him. So after hearing about this, Naaman got permission from the king of Aram to go into Israel and find this prophet so that he could be healed. And Naaman took with him a whole bunch of stuff. Gifts, maybe that he could give to the king of Israel to allow him to travel freely in the land. Gifts, maybe that he could give the prophet of the Lord so that he would heal this foreigner. The king of Israel, when he heard about what Naaman wanted to do, come in and be healed, the king got really upset. He only saw that this was going to have negative outcomes. Nobody can heal leprosy. So he thought Naaman was going to come in and the king would have to send him back still diseased. And this would just create more hostility between Aram and Israel and cause more conflicts between them. What's your God like, King of Israel? Apparently a God who is weak and far off. Elisha heard about the king of Israel's reaction to Naaman's request, and Elisha told the king to send Naaman his way. He would show Naaman that there really was a prophet of the Lord in Israel, even if the king of Israel would reject him. And so Naaman went. And there Naaman was with his horses and chariot at the front door of Elisha the prophet's house. But Elisha didn't come out to meet him and his impressive camp. Instead, Elisha just sent a servant to tell Naaman, "Go wash yourself in the Jordan River 7 times and you will be cleansed." Now, initially, Naaman was upset by this, finding it all kind of ridiculous, but his servants convinced him to just try it. You were willing to do anything to be healed. Why not try this? And so Naaman went. And the Lord showed Naaman what he is like. Naaman was cleansed by washing in the Jordan River. Not that the Jordan River was anything special, but the Lord spoke through his prophet and gave this water the power to cleanse Naaman. Naaman was completely healed, and he could see what the Lord is like. Powerful and gracious to save him. Naaman and all his attendants came back to Elisha. And there Naaman confessed what he now knew about God, that there is no God in all the world except in Israel, that the Lord is the one true God. And Naaman told Elisha to take all of the gifts that he brought for him. But Elisha refused. What's your God like, Elisha? Not a God who saves people because of how impressive they are. Not a God who saves people only so that his prophets can receive these riches. What's your God like, Elisha? A God who saves only because of his mercy and love. God cleansed Naaman as a gift of his grace, and Elisha wanted to keep it that way. He wouldn't let Naaman pay for it so that Naaman could then go home with this impression of who God is and what he is like. That he is a God who shows mercy and love only because of who he is. Except Gehazi wanted to show what he thought of his God. What is your God like, Gehazi? Apparently, he is a God primarily of justice and anger. A God who wouldn't stand for this cleansing just to be a gift of his grace. It had to be paid for. What's your God like, Gehazi? Apparently, a God who only chose the people of Israel without much care for any other souls. Apparently, Gehazi's God is one who was not powerful to see the lies and the theft of Gehazi. And so Gehazi went and lied to take something from Naaman. And Naaman, of course, showed his faith and gave an over-the-top gift to Gehazi. Elisha had shown Naaman what God is like. Now Elisha was going to show Gehazi what God is really like. That the Lord is a God who cares deeply about souls. A God who does primarily show his mercy and love to save sinners. He's a God who cares. And the Lord showed Gehazi that he cared by striking him with leprosy, him and his children, for messing with this clear message that the Lord through Elisha was sending to Naaman. That God is a God who gives gifts out of his mercy and love. But Gehazi took something from him. What is your God like? In the brief or daily encounters people get with you, what impression do they come away with what your God is like? Do we show God primarily as one of justice and anger? By distancing ourselves from sinners, by frowning at sin, not in an effort to win them over to the grace and mercy of God, but just to keep our dignity. What do we show that our God is like? Do we show that our God is one who chose only us to be saved? By not going out and sharing the gospel and inviting people to hear more about Jesus. And so show a God who doesn't care that deeply about souls. Do we show a God who isn't powerful to see? By living a life of hypocrisy. One that puts on a nice face for churchgoers or even our family, but with our friends or when we think ourselves in private, we show a life that loves sin, as if the Lord doesn't see. What is your God like? Your God is one who cares deeply about souls, about salvation for those souls. And so sometimes he does let us experience the consequences of our sin, to show us what our sin really is, how destructive it is to ourselves and to the message of what our God is like that we're sending to other people. The Lord cares about our souls. So he'll tell us exactly what the problem is, that we were born in sin, born lost. What is your God like? He is one who cares so deeply about souls that he would cleanse your soul in the work of Jesus. He is one who cares deeply about you. And he makes it incredibly clear to you that your salvation has nothing to do with your action, but his. He makes unmistakably clear in the life of Jesus who God is and what he is like. In Jesus, we see that God is powerful. Jesus did what we could never do. He lived a perfect life under God's strict law. He lived flawlessly. Jesus showed his power in the miracles he performed, healing people with leprosy. Jesus showed his power by taking all of the sins of the whole world onto his back when he went to the cross. Jesus showed his power when, after 3 days in the grave, he rose from the dead and ascended into heaven to live and reign forever. God is powerful, and he is gracious to save. Because he did all of this for you, to forgive your sins, to cover over our imperfect reflection of who he is. Jesus saved us from the ultimate consequence of sin, death, and hell, and instead gave us life and heaven in its place. God has made unmistakably clear to you that he has saved you out of his mercy and love, only out of a gift of his grace. He shows that power and that grace to us in baptism, where, like Gehazi had his leprous skin turned clean like that of a young boy, Jesus has washed us clean from our sins. In baptism, we are clean. What is your God like? He's shown you. So now how are we going to reflect that and show that to other people? Maybe, like the Israelite servant girl and unlike the king of Israel, we can show what our God is like by showing hope in the face of hopelessness. Where other people are talking like the world is falling and crumbling down around them because of the economy or the election or hurricanes or because something in our life didn't go the way that we wanted it to, maybe we can show in those cases that we still have hope in Jesus. That it's okay, even if the world does come crumbling down around us, because our hope isn't for this life, but for the life Jesus won for us. Maybe, unlike Gehazi, we can show grace when others might expect us to be judgmental. That we can show a care that doesn't compromise what God says about sin, but still shows mercy and love to the sinner. Maybe like Elisha, we can always think about how our words and actions tell other people what our God is like. That we know that our God has shown mercy and love to us, and that is the only way that we are saved. So then we go out and show mercy and love to others in order to win them over to see the good news of salvation in Jesus. You know what your God is like. Show it to Naaman. Amen.